It's Rut and River.
Yes.
Correct.
R-U-T.
I rest my beard hair on it.
And then you know you're there.
Like a nice, gentle little pillow for my beard.
Right.
And then I'm all up in it.
Oh.
I'm like Kobe beef for sharks.
Can I ask you, what made you guys call me up about, well, this?
That's what tickles our fancy.
Exactly.
Okay.
Thought the Rocky Mountains would be rockier.
John Denver is not accurate.
Man.
A guy like you, who has absolutely no clue, and I can hear it in your voice, that, I mean, you're a blank canvas. I mean, I can just start with you like from scratch.
You're going to tell me, a grown man, you're telling me what lure to use and how to fish?
You guys didn't snap your whopper plopper off either, though.
Sorry, I blew up over that.
And we are back. You are listening to the Rut and River Pursuit podcast. This is Reality Outdoor Radio, where our mission is to get you in the outdoors by connecting you with the people, skills, and products you can trust.
You can trust them.
Trust it.
We are sitting here right around the Sonic campfire. I'm Ryan. Who do I got with me tonight?
This is Dave.
I'm Brian.
It's Bucky.
And I'm Will.
What's going on, fellas?
Hey, guys.
Hey, Bucky.
Yeah, Ryan.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about this month's sponsor?
I'll tell you about this month's sponsor. This month's episodes are brought to you in part by Scared Fishless Tackle Company. You'll find everything you need to be successful on the water there. These soft plastics are rugged. Will caught multiple fish on the same 6-inch diamondback worm during our most recent pike and bass trip to New York.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, he did.
He slayed them.
them.
Need a custom color or bait made? Hey, guys, they do that too.
Noise.
Check them out at scaredfishless.com.
Scared Fishless.
Or on Instagram and the Facebooks at Scared Fishless.
Scared Fishless.
Hey, guys.
Yeah, bud.
Yeah, man.
So our first guest for Bass-tastic, which is nothing but bass fishing.
We are all up in Bass-tastic, aren't we?
Yeah, month of June
It's
is
happening.
going to be all Bass-tastic, guys. And we have no better guest to kick it off than Jim Crowley of hookandhunttv.com.
Don't be bashful about it.
Yeah.
Are you there, Jim? Are you there, Jim?
Jokes are free. That's good.
Hey, Jim, how's it going, bud?
Wonderful, guys. I'm glad to be here with the entire crowd, all of you. This is awesome. Thanks for having me on.
Well, we're actually missing a few, so you're having light duty this week.
Yeah.
Well, fantastic. I've been looking forward to this for a long time and talking with you guys. And as big as you guys are getting, as well known as you're getting, it was great to meet you all in Harrisburg.
Yeah, we had a good time catching up with you at the Lucas Oil booth.
It was great.
Yeah,
It's a little bit warmer now than it was then.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was cold, and anywhere in the Midwest, all the way up to by you guys up there was brutal this year, and that's how it goes. But we're talking bass fishing. I'm happy. What is on your minds? I'm looking forward to speaking with you.
Well, what's going on in your world for bass fishing? Anything coming up?
Yeah, we here in the Midwest, and I'm in Illinois, so I'm right in the center of the state, but we are getting ready to travel to Ontario on Monday to pursue some pre-spawn to spawn smallmouth, just depending on how the weather goes. We've been going there for years. It's a great time of year to film because there's so many different things you can do depending on water temperature and water clarity. Everything from jerkbaits to topwater to hair jigs. It just depends when we get there and see what phase they're actually in. And then here in the Midwest, is the water starting to clear up because we've had so much rain. We just got done filming a show on one of the very few reservoirs that didn't have a whole bunch of runoff in it that we were able to get actually some fish to actually be able to see lures because a lot of the places are so muddy that we actually just got done filming a great show on soft plastic jerkbaits because the fish were so locked down in the weeds. Wouldn't chase a frog, so we had to throw soft plastic jerkbaits at them and basically just let it sit there. It was almost like dead sticking in weed beds, which is a really strange bite, but we turned it into a great show. But this year is weird, but you hear when I fished tournaments for almost 15 years back in the day. And, every time you go to the ramp, you could already hear the guys at the ramp that already took themselves out of the tournament. Well, the bite's tough, or I don't really think I'm on them, or I don't know what I'm going to do today. And those are guys that already had in my mind that I was going to get their money for the day. Because when conditions are changing, okay, so that's fine. So everything goes out the window. Great. So go out and fish.
Right.
Yeah.
So just go out and fish.
You carry a tackle box for a reason.
Yeah, and and a lot of them anymore are 20 feet long and $80,000. You got a big tackle box.
Yeah.
There's
those are tackle shops.
Yeah.
Right, and a lot of us overthink it and way overstock for what we need to do. Fish do three things, and that's all they do. They swim, they eat, they make little fish. That's what they do.
Yep.
But they don't think.
That's
they
the
don't
same
have
thing I do.
emotions. Yeah, it's like us on prom night. We don't think. We don't have emotions. We simply just react to our environment. When they're not spawning, usually in reservoirs, home of the fish is deep water, and so they're at places for two reasons: mostly to feed, and then two for safety or for cover, but most of it's to feed. And so, if people just realize a lot of times, since they don't think, if you get in the areas or you concentrate on techniques, depending on water clarity and water temperature, those are always my first two choices: is water clarity and water temperature. And all the lures, rods, and reels we have are simply tools to get a job done.
Right.
Learn to match those. Learn what your lures are doing, and fishing becomes simple. It becomes a little bit easier, but we don't have to make it as hard as sometimes we make it.
So, Jim, I actually think I watched that episode today where you were using the jerkbaits because nothing else was really working for you. And like you said, you were hanging them up in the weed beds and stuff. Anytime you see a little bit of wood either laying in the bottom or coming off the bank, you guys were throwing into that stuff. How were you rigging those jerkbaits, right? Those were the Z-Man jerkbaits.
Right. Those were the Z-Man scented jerk shads. And remember something, after a cold front, and we've had a lot of cold fronts this year. Remember, after a cold front on reservoirs, bass like hard cover. So what I learned years and years ago from in-fishermen and also from Bassmaster was the three things after a cold front on reservoirs: rocks, docks, and stumps. And it's in that order.
Rocks, docks, and stumps.
Rocks, docks, and stumps. And so
I'm gonna get that
in the little
tattooed on my
reservoir
arm.
that we were fishing, there wasn't a whole lot of rock. And there's no docks, basically. So stumps or laydowns, wood next to grass was going to be my cover options. Because in the grass alone, we got very, very few strikes, if any. But if there's wood in the water next to that grass, especially if that wood was in the water in grass next to deeper water, those three things were almost all the time when we got a strike.
Is this a heat thing that the rocks are going to be warm, that they're going to find warmth off of that?
That's a great question. And all I've known is that hard cover. And I don't know whether it has to be a heat thing, and I'm sure there's some of the pros, full-time pros, that could tell you that more so. But I've always seen when I'm on a reservoir, especially here's an example: power plant lake, and you've got a lot of rocks, you've got a lot of riprap. That's going to be the first thing I'm going to do because there's more of that. So my odds of finding more fish there are going to be better. Mm-hmm. When I've been in a reservoir where there's not as much rock but there's more docks, then those fish, and especially if they're wood pilings, the bass are going to relate to that more. Now, when you don't have any of those, stumps or laydowns, again, hard cover, close to or adjacent to deep water is going to do that. After all these years, and I wish I had a better answer for you, and I'm not avoiding it, but after all these years, even if I don't know why, I know it works.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, even anecdotal evidence is evidence enough. You make that work.
Yeah, and you do it. And so and a lot of times, especially in reservoirs where there's a lot of shallow cover available, your best options a lot of time are eliminating the shallow cover, and you can easily do that one by one in a short period of time. I never fish an entire lake. What I'll do is I'm on a big reservoir and I come across the same thing. Then I'll pick one or two creeks that have a creek channel close to or running into it, and I go into those creeks and I'll see what my cover is available, and then I'll break it down that way, because I'm going to have a lot systematically. My odds are going to be more in my favor if I do that than instead of running around the whole lake going, oh, that looks good or that looks good. You can never be consistent that way.
Right. And then maybe you pick up a pattern, then just go from there.
Right, and then because all reservoirs can be brought. The Olden fisherman system can be broken down. You break down a reservoir, and for somebody who might not know it, and I'm not saying this insultingly, but it's a man-made lake. Okay, so there was a creek there. They dammed it up, and then you have your upper end and you have your lower end. Your lower end's always going to be the deeper and clearer water. So what you do is you can break every reservoir, no matter how big it is, down into thirds. And so if I took a creek, I would go the upper end of the creek, or the shallowest would be the upper end, then the middle, and then the lower end. Well, somewhere along the line, you're going to find fish somewhere. So if you do that and then you duplicate it on that day, a lot of chances you can run areas that you didn't even fish. And as long as things match what you've been fishing before, the odds are much better in your favor that you have a chance of catching more, even in an area that you haven't fished before.
That's most of our lakes here locally, and I was going to clarify with you when you were stating a reservoir, if that was like an Army Corps of Engineer type project, like Lake of the Ozarks, Table Rock Lake, out your way, to name a few. Wow, you've just put a lot of information in my head in a short amount of time.
That was a ton of information.
So you slapped us with cold fronts. How about a warm front?
Well, hold on, because I want to. I still need to know how he was rigging those jerk shads.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That. And I'm asking
you asked
specifically.
Me the time of day. You asked me the time of day, and sometimes I'll give you the history of the clock. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. But I remember from the video that the temperature of the water was 61 degrees. The reason I'm asking is just because the temperature
we happen to be
right
close
about
to
where
degrees.
we're at right now. I'm just wondering how you rigged those shad.
Okay, so here's what happened. So we had the water temperature go up later in the day to where, when I said that part of the show, it was later in the day. And what I did is I went out later that day. And the reason I did is because we had a cold front the night before that got down to 38, 39 degrees. So it got cold. And so the fish that were already up shallow trying to spawn, they locked down in the grass. Some of them probably dropped off. I just couldn't get bites on the drop-off, which was my first choice. So I went to a drop-off, I wouldn't do it. So the ones that stayed shallow locked up in that grass. And so they weren't aggressive enough to come after a frog. So here's how I rigged soft plastic jerkbait. I was throwing it on 17-pound fluorocarbon. Sometimes I'll throw on braid. Here's the idea. I went to fluorocarbon because I wanted to bait, since fluorocarbon line sinks and the water was a little bit clearer, I wanted to go to a line that was going to hold the bait down. Those Z-Man plastics are extremely buoyant.
Yes, they are.
Okay, so if I was using any other probably jerkbait, braid would have been fine because the plastic sinks. When I use the Elastec, which is what I use all the time anymore, I adjust for certain things. So I wanted the bait to stay a little bit below the surface, but almost like suspend. So what I did is I used a 3.0 or a 4.0, depending on what we had in the hook, offset VMC hook. And then I pulled the nose of that Elastec up over the eye and the hook, which I think you should do anyway.
Anyway, sure.
Right, and because that way the knot won't get hung up on the grass or whatever. And then I rigged it straight, which you should always do anyway, on there. And with the combination between that medium wire hook and the fluorocarbon would almost make the bait sit to a point and not float and not sink, but almost suspend and sit there. This was absolutely the most painful dead sticking I've probably ever done. And it was visual because you throw it there and let it sit there. And there's a couple spots in the video where you can see me barely twitch the rod tip. I mean, barely move it. And we always do our best to show everything from drone footage to when we have water clarity to everything below to show you exactly what we're experiencing, because anybody can do a video catching a fish. Who cares? What we want to show you is how and why we're doing something to be successful. And hopefully the goal is that you all can take it and hopefully maybe even add something to it or be more successful than that.
That's
so
awesome.
We'll let you
the
know.
fluorocarbon actually weighted that bait enough to where it would sink a little bit lower in the water column and just kind of sit there. So that's how I rigged it.
So in your opinion then, if I was throwing with braid, but I had about a 20 to 30 inch fluoro leader, would that be enough, or
it would be fine? That'd be fine.
Okay.
That'd be fine, because even a lot of guys are doing that a lot these days, or they're throwing, even on bait casters, throwing braid with a fluorocarbon leader. And if you're going to do that, smaller knots like the Albright knot, which I think that's the one I use almost all the time to connect the braid to the fluorocarbon, I think is a very, very good knot that you can cut small enough the tag ends, that can pass through even the smallest of micro guides.
Okay. I usually
And
tie
still-
the FG knot because that's the only one that I
Right,
really
and a
was
lot more
able to
people
do.
are doing that. And I'll tell you, I'm old. I don't tie that one good. So I still stick with the Albright knot, but the FG knot, I've had more saltwater guys tell me that they're going to the FG knot because it is less visible.
I found
so
that
I agree.
Albright knot's a
That's
little bit
great
easier
choice.
to tie, though.
Is it?
Sure.
I got to look into that one.
I'm an FG guy. I'm an
And
FG
see,
guy.
and I can't say bad about either one because I've actually had a saltwater charter captain tell me that you can learn to tie the FG knot, and for whatever reason, my ADD won't allow me to tie the FG knot very good. So I stick with that Albright knot. But when you learn to tie a knot good and you do it repetitively enough, not only is quicker, you have more confidence in it. And I've even started, like, if we get to talking about Nico rigs sometime, or Ned rigs, Nico rigs specifically, I went to snelling my hooks because it's a more direct pull on a straight shank hook than even the Palomar knot, which I absolutely love. But I've even learned to start snelling my stuff, and just to get my knots a little bit more precise. So learning the FG knot would probably be a benefit to me.
So going back to the question of how you rig the soft jerk bait, did you
Sure.
use an extra wide gap, or was it a straight shank?
Yes. No. And I fish most of my plastics 99% of the time with the VMC wide gap hooks. And the reason I do that, and I know a lot of the full-time pros are going to straight shanks back again. I remember when we did that into the 90s, back in the 90s, and we did that with straight shanks. And then they went to offsets, and now they're going back to straight shanks. One of the reasons, and that's fine, they both work.
Right.
One of the reasons I like the offsets is because I think it is easier and more proficient to rig a bait straighter
I get you.
on an offset than it is on a straight shank.
Right.
And so it gets down to the time after all these years of doing it, what works, you stick with. And one of the reasons so much that that I tout the VMCs is because with their offsets, they have a 3-degree turn in that hook. It's a 3-degree offset. And so when you set the hook automatically rotates.
Yeah.
When you get to rotate from an angle, so your angle, the angle that, and I'm a geek when it comes to this stuff, so I'm just going to tell you, when you have an angle from the boat down to the water and you have a 3-degree offset, if you watch where your hook sets are compared to straight shank, a lot more of them are in the side of the mouth where you really have to dig them out.
Right.
And so I shouldn't say I never lose fish, but very, very rarely, because of that rotation of that hook, will you lose a fish.
We ought to figure that out because we lose some fish.
Speak for
Yeah,
yourself.
speak for yourself. I'm good.
Not
No, I was speaking for the rest of you guys, actually. Myself, I'm pretty good now.
It's because all yours swallow the hook from your finesse rig.
So, go ahead.
Jim, you're out in Illinois, correct?
Correct.
And whereabouts in Illinois are you?
I'm in the center of the state. So where Bloomington is about the center of the state. So Peoria is, northwest of Chicago's 2.5 hours north.
All right.
How far from Cuba?
That is south of me. You know what? I don't remember. I've been through there. I know I have, but I don't know.
It's west. It's way west. It's actually
okay.
southwest of Peoria.
That's where Bucky
Okay.
was born.
I was born in Peoria.
Cuba's way
Okay.
south of here. I don't
Yeah,
know
I'm
what
thinking
you
it's
guys are
like
talking
real
about.
far south, guys. What are you talking about?
It's actually Cuba, Illinois.
Oh, Cuba, Illinois.
If you listen to the "Where's My Rust Belt" episode, you'll hear about Bucky's time in Cuba.
Yeah.
See, I just assumed it was Cuba. Learning something new every day.
And there's a lot of like old coal strip mines all
Oh, yeah.
through that part of the country, guys. And are you fishing a lot of those little places?
We actually just fished one. When my wife and I just did helped out with a charity tournament for disabled folks last Saturday. It's a place called the Giant Goose Ranch in Canton, and it's a bunch of those strip
in
pits. I mean,
Canton,
it's like,
Illinois.
Yeah, it's like gin clear water, right?
That's where we moved to after Cuba.
What?
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Oh, it's in there.
world.
There's literally, and it's still fantastic goose hunting there. The duck hunting can be okay, but a lot of the lakes around there can produce some. Banner Marsh is
Yeah.
one. Yeah. Okay. So Giant Goose Ranch over there, all those pits over there, there can be some incredible bass fishing there. Some of it can be tough because the water is so clear. But there's some great fish in there.
Now, when you're
Jim,
fishing,
it sounds like you do a little bit of everything.
Right.
Hook and hunt.
I mean, he's hooking and hunting.
Yeah.
I guess.
It's not just a clever name.
Yeah, there's a reason behind that when we were drinking beer and made up the name for the show. But yeah.
and forgive me now because Jim's just taking me down memory lane here.
Oh,
and,
yeah,
and
don't worry about it.
Because I remember being a kid and I would just dream about catching fish in those pits, and because nobody hardly fishes them, you don't see people.
No, I've got a gravel pit by the house, and this is 10, 15 years ago. But my biggest bass in Illinois is 8.5 pounds.
What?
And it came out of a gravel pit like 20 minutes from my house.
Largemouth.
Largemouth, yeah.
Yeah.
And
I would say it'd be a largemouth.
And I think the biggest bass I've caught on camera for Hook and Hunt TV, I think, was a 7.4 or 7.9.
Wow.
And that was in 2009 when Rapala came out with the X-Rap. And it was like the third or fourth fish I ever caught on it. And it was like a 7.4 or 7.9. That video is still somewhere out there on YouTube. And it was amazing. And that same pit produced that 8.5 pounder for me. It was pretty cool.
I'm embarrassed to say this, but this is my first year using some of those X-Wraps. And they are killers.
Oh, yeah.
They're stone cold.
Welcome to the addiction, right?
if more people, I still said it, when water clarity presents itself, whether it's in fresh or salt water, I have caught some of my biggest and some of my most memorable fishing trips have been on jerkbaits.
Yeah.
And I've given a ton of seminars over the years about, throwing jerkbaits on, because I've worked with Rapala for 14 years. And so I was really lucky that the guy who designed pretty much all their jerkbaits all the way from the Husky Jerk all the way up to the X-Rap in 2009, then the Shadow Rap, and now the Ripstop was Mark Fisher, who just retired from Rapala last year. He's in the Hall of Fame, lure designer. And Mark actually helped me learn how to fish jerkbaits the correct way.
Wow.
And I do it now for largemouth, smallmouth, northern pike, muskie.
For us and our listeners,
Please.
Can you tell us
exactly
how to do that?
What's the technique?
What's the correct way?
It's based on several things. And since we got some time, I'll just tell you. Okay, first of all, jerkbaits are without question more effective in clear or lightly stained water. And you've got sinking jerkbaits, you've got suspending jerkbaits, and then you've got ones that will float, and you've got ones that will rise. So based on if you really, really, really want to get into the technical stuff of jerkbaits, a lot of it is based on water clarity and water temperature. And I say that for a lot of my lures, but I don't think it's no more prevalent than it is with jerkbaits. And so if I'm fishing smallmouth early in the year, like if I was up in Ontario a couple of weeks ago and that water temperature's in the upper 40s, a bait that's going to stay down deeper in that water column or barely suspend is going to be my first choice. So the original Shadow Rap, when we came out with that one, that is the bait that really doesn't float or sink. It kind of fades, but it does to an extent sink. So I can control my depth with that bait and keep that bait down more. And I'm going to be throwing it on sinking braid and fluorocarbon. So most of my jerkbait setup is 10-pound suffix 832. And I'm not just naming baits or lines to name to product promote here. I use suffix 832 because it sinks. It's got Gore-Tex 5%. It's a sinking braid. So that helps the bait stay down. Then I use a fluorocarbon leader. That also sinks. So that keeps the bait down. So when those fish are starting to move in or starting to move closer in that pre-spawn area, I want a bait that's going to stay down more. Or if they're not responding to that, then I'm going to slow it down even more. And that's when I go to the X-Rap.
Yeah.
The X-Rap has that cupped lip. So there's a cup inside the lip. If you take your X-Rap when you get home and press your thumb in there, you'll feel a cup compared to like the Husky Jerk or compared to the Shadow Rap. What that does is it actually makes a bait slash. It cups more water. So it causes a bait to jerk more from side to side in an up and down motion than it does the rest of them. That's going to be the bait that I'm going to pause. because the suspending bait like that, when you pause that, with the fish's metabolism being lower in cold water, that can be really, really deadly, especially on smallmouth. Now, when they get a little bit more active and getting more into the shallow water area of it, then I'm going to go either with the shadow wrap shad, which stops and then starts to float nose up, or if they're getting really close to the beds, or I'm throwing a jerkbait in clear shallow water, that's when I may go with the rip stop. It doesn't move from side to side at all. It stays between 2 and 3 feet, and it just stops. And when they say it stops, you jerk that bait, it stops. It doesn't go from side to side. It doesn't turn back around like the shadow wrap does. It just stops. So again, they're like any other lure. It's just a series of lures that you use to cover depths in the water column to be more effective with a jerkbait. One is not going to, I tell everybody, especially in a seminar, every single lure in my tackle box works, and every single lure in my tackle box does not work.
It all just depends.
It depends on you, what you know, and how you use it. There is no such thing as a magical lure. There is your excellence or lack of it that determines the success with that lure.
Usually the latter for me.
With all of us.
Yeah.
Now, I'm taking some copious notes over here just so that we're all aware.
Jerkbait is probably, I ran into a guy at a ramp when we were filming a show last week, and he goes, I've seen more stuff with you on jerkbaits and wacky worms. And I said, that's probably the two things for largemouth and smallmouth that I'm probably the most known for, I think, is because I'm very technical when it comes to that stuff. And if more people would fish jerkbaits, whatever brand, I don't care what brand it is, if you would learn how to effectively use that lure. And the best way you can do it is to stand in shallow water and manipulate your rod tip so you can see what that lure is doing. Because when you can learn what it does, and then you make that cast 30 or 40 yards away, you can make that lure do exactly what you want. And knowing what your lure does on every cast, that's when you start fishing. If you don't know what your lure is doing on every single cast, then you're just hoping for a bite. The odds are not in your favor.
Right. Yeah. So here's a situation. You look at the water temperature, you look at the water clarity, you throw the bait that you feel is going to give you the opportunity to give you a strike, and after a half an hour it doesn't happen. What's your next step? If what you think is going to work doesn't happen, then what do you do?
Okay, so then there's only two types of presentations we have as anglers. It's vertical and horizontal. Okay. You have horizontal presentations where I'm going to be, especially when I get to a new body of water, or even when I get to one that I know, I'm almost always going to start out with a horizontal presentation. I'm going to see if I can get some reaction strikes, because fish only feed for two reasons. They feed out of reflex, or they feed out of hunger. And if we were just fishing for fish that fed, we probably wouldn't catch nowhere near as many as we do. It's our job as anglers to make them react.
Right.
And that's what this billion-dollar industry has been built on, is fish reacting to
reaction strikes. Sure.
Okay. So, right. And so this time of year, like when I go to Ontario next week, I've a couple baits I've got tied on already and I'll take it from top to bottom. Skitter pop is one. Just because a couple years ago we filmed an awesome show on a Skitter V. And I want to do a show on popping baits. We haven't done one in a long time. So
is that a
Skitter pop?
Yeah.
Top water lure?
Yeah, so we're going to do that. I'm also going to do it on a new smaller frog that Terminator has, a new smaller walking frog. And smallmouth are going to be moving up into pencil reeds off these islands to spawn. And so being able to get a bait back in there is going to be key once they lock on the beds. And so a frog like that's going to be able to come through anything. A Ned rig is going to be able to be cast precisely on a spinning rod in there, or a small hair jig. So those are all rigged. Then I have a DT Fat, which is a 3-foot diving fat wobbling crankbait that I'm going to wake. And so that coming over shallow reefs or whatever, that's going to be a good one. And basically what I'm doing is I'm doing mostly horizontal presentations to see what we can find and see how the fish react. On a crankbait, if they're hitting a back hook, then I know either they're slashing at it or there's something else they want. If they're engulfing the entire bait, I can pretty much tell that's what I should be doing. Retrieve, speed, depth, everything.
That one's money.
Yeah.
That's money. Then if they're coming in and you can't see the bait, or it's hooked crossways in their face, don't change a thing.
Yeah.
If they're slashing at the bait, and we saw this a couple years ago when we were filming, we hit the pre-spawn perfectly, and we were throwing the shadow wrap when it first came out, knocking the crap out of them the first day. Second day, they were slashing at it. We threw back in there with soft plastic jerk baits and wackies, and they started hitting a little better. Third day, they wouldn't come out for anything. They were locked on the beds in the pencil reeds. We dropped down to, and this is a trick I got taught. I will always give him credit. Dan Quinn from Rapala taught me how to throw a 1/16 ounce black hair jig. And they were locked on the beds. And they're locked on these big boulders that are in shallow water under, close to or around these pencil reeds. So you would toss this hair jig in there on 10-pound braid and fluorocarbon, and you would just let it sink. And all of a sudden your line would just tick.
Yeah.
And you'd set the hook, and you have to go in after them because they'd wrap you up in the pencil reeds. So we actually went from watching a pre-spawn to actually blocking on the nest and having about 3 or 4 different baits to do it. And because when smallmouth lock down, they're done. They're on the nest. They lock quick.
So you said with those hair jigs, you're just dropping them in and letting them sit.
Right. And the hair jig is a really, really neat technique. VMC actually makes a hair jig designed for this technique. We make 10 different colors. You don't need any of them but black. They hate when I say that. you need black and you need 1/16. Yeah. And then you take a little piece of worm, plastic worm, and you slide it up on a shank. That adds casting weight to the bait. And then it also flares the hair skirt. What I do then is I take a 7.5, 7.3 to 7.6 spinning rod, medium light. It's basically a crappie rod.
Yeah.
Or a light action walleye rod, and you're making long casts with that small bait, because in that clear water, the biggest mistake I think people make is they get too close to the fish. You need to stay the heck off the fish.
Now, when you're doing
and you can make long casts with that hair jig, and the slower you can reel it, slow it down even more.
Yeah.
Now you're talking about setting up for a trip, and you kind of have this list of lures you want to use. What about the color selection? Because you don't really know what the water clarity is going to be until you get there. Are you kind of just going off of reports, or?
Here's how I do it. And I've been, so I'm going to have a little bit more information than some people, because I've been traveling to Canada for 45 years. Okay, since my dad started taking me when I was 7. And obviously I'm not writing a whole bunch of notes when I'm 7 or 8 years old. But you look at water clarity, and I remember it then. Most of it is depending on, say, if we're fishing Eagle or Lake of the Woods, which I fished a ton. And the northern end of the lake is going to be really, really clear. Really, really clear. So I'm fishing a lot of fluorocarbon and light line. When I get down to the lower end, like the southeast end of Eagle, there's a little bit of a tint to the water there. I can get away a little bit more with like small chatterbaits and crankbaits and Ned rigs and wacky worms and things like that, because the water clarity really doesn't change much. The water level will rise and fall, but it won't change much, because it's a massive body. It's a Canadian Shield Lake. It's a massive body of water. And you've got so much vegetation there too. There's going to be a lot of clarity. Sometimes maybe a little bit more, a little bit less. But when I get to Canadian Shield Lakes, it's different than when I'm fishing a reservoir or a tidal. Or what I call myself is a forage-based angler. I know what they're feeding on. They're feeding on walleyes. They're feeding on perch. They're feeding on small whitefish, small minnows. And so my color selection is really, really simple. Here's a bait that will always work in Canada, no matter where you go, and everybody's got one in their tackle box. Fire tiger.
Fire tiger.
Fire tiger.
Yeah,
fire tiger.
It's a go-to.
It's going to work everywhere. It's got every color of just about everything that you do. Yeah, and on a cloudy day, bone with an orange belly or a green with an orange belly. Those are crawdads. That's what the crawdad colors are. I remember as a kid walking the shorelines of Lake of the Woods and turning up rocks and getting small crawdads out of it, because you're a kid. That's what you do.
Sure.
And you remember a lot of that is that green or that orange. And those baits are still really prevalent today. They haven't changed. I mean, the forage base is the same. I think what has changed a lot is the angler. The angler always wants the quick fix and the hottest color and the hottest technique. That's not always the one that's going to be the most. Basics will still always outproduce the newest thing, because the newest thing came along because of the basics.
Right.
So do you ever throw those rebel crayfish?
You know what? I didn't win a tournament on it, but back in the Illinois River years ago, fantastic bait. That Rebel We Are, or not the Rebel We Are, the crawdad one you're talking about. There is one that is a brownish with a white with an orange belly.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
When I was going to Canada as a kid, the deep diving one, here's what I did even back when I was a teenager. You have size 8, number 8 hooks on those. So I would leave the front one on there, and then I would put a 6 on the back. They wouldn't tangle, but you would have a bigger hook to catch. And like I said, I've worked for Rapala for 13 years. That crankbait is an absolutely phenomenal crankbait. That Rebel crankbait is a good.
I'm glad to hear that, because I have 3 or 4 in my tackle box that haven't been thrown in a while.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have gotten some miles out of that.
I have a tray, a Plano tray full of them because of the mileage I've gotten out of those.
You know what? I was turned on to that crankbait years and years and years ago by a walleye guy. And he goes, "You need to be throwing this on the Illinois River." And he was right, because I was catching a bunch of bass with that so-called walleye crankbait back then. Rapala just came out with a shad wrap pattern that mimics that, but in the original shad wrap. One of the best baits ever is a shad wrap because of that balsa wood and because of that tight wiggle. You put that color scheme on there in clear water, that will, on a solid straight retrieve thrown on a spinning rod, that thing will flat out stop and float up enough to look like a little crawdad coming off the bottom. And it's the same color scheme. It's fantastic in a balsa bait. Absolutely fantastic.
Nice. Yeah. So Jim, what's going on? What's new for hookandhunttv.com?
I think this year, and we started it this way, and I've already been getting great comments on it, is now that this is my full-time gig. I do all the editing myself. I have one cameraman who's my best friend and phenomenal with the still camera as well as a video camera.
Wish I could get one of those.
We've added more camera stuff, whether it be underwater with GoPros, cameras in the back of the boat with YOLO Tech, definitely more drone footage to make sure we show everything from top to bottom. What people are going to see this year is probably, along with how I've been explaining things, and we do that in every show as we take time to do something, you're going to be seeing more footage that will back up what we explain more so than we've ever been able to do.
Yeah, that's great.
And so everyone will, I'm hoping, my goal is that you feel like you're there underwater with us. Everything from over to shoulder. If you saw one of you guys mentioned that you saw the recent show, if you notice, my cameraman was over my shoulder and we showed wood in the water. We did everything from the casting angle to showing you exactly what we were throwing at.
There's another aspect of the show that I didn't even get to touch on yet, and I know Deaky's probably chomping at the bit. I can't believe he didn't bring it up yet. You actually take some time and you go over the rod itself that you're using, and you talk about the fact that you're building a lot of these yourself.
I am, and this is so funny. So I'm 52 years old, right? And you're like, okay, because I need another hobby, right? and I got a buddy of mine that I've known through the industry for years, Don Morris from American Tackle. And Don and I were talking. He goes, "Well, why don't you just start building your own stuff?" And my history in rods goes back a long way. My mentor in the industry, to make a long story short, was Mike Thorson. Mike Thorson used to design the rods for St. Croix. Some of his designs they're still using today. And what's that?
I'm a big fan of St. Croix rods.
Okay, so the original Legend and the Premier rods were designed by my mentor, which was Mike Thorson. They're still using some of his designs today. He now works for a components company called Batson Enterprises. Mike and I are still very, very good friends after 20-something years in the industry. And so he taught me everything that I know about rods, not everything he knows, but I learned about lengths and actions and how you match those. And that's not something you can just do. It's something you're taught and you learn over time. Well, so Don and I were talking about this at ICAST a couple of years ago, and he goes, you're working with us, and I love the microwave guide system. I've loved that since it came out in 2009. I fished with Doug Hannon who invented that. And when he showed it to me, I thought it was absolutely incredible, especially on spinning rods, blah, blah, blah. So we get to talk, and he said, why don't you learn to build a rod? And I said, well, Don, I don't know how to build a rod. He goes, I'll teach you. And so he goes, here. So here's his idea of teaching me. He sends me like 7 or 8 videos. And so I go, okay. And I go, so what? He goes, watch the videos. Crowley, have some patience and watch the video. I watch them and I go, I can do this. And so I ordered some components from Angler's Workshop. And believe it or not, they're in Illinois, one of the biggest distributors across the country for people who make their own rods, lures, all that kind of stuff. It's called, if you've heard of Lure Parts Online.
Yeah.
Okay, they're Angler's Workshop. Same thing. 2 different websites, same company. Okay. They have the videos out there that are free that you can just go and learn.
That's perfect.
How to build a rod. And so I'm like, what a cool thing. So we developed a plan with Angler's Workshop and Lure Parts Online that why don't we show every episode where I catch fish that we take one of the rods that I use in the episode and talk about how I built it and what it is.
It's great that you're doing that.
Yep.
Well, thank you, because so far it's been really well received, and people. I'm like, hey, listen, I'm not a pro at this. I've built 15 rods. I do not finish them better than a lot of guys out there.
The toughest part, I think.
It is. It is to make it. Anybody can wrap threads on there, and I'm learning that because I still have my first rod that I wrapped, and I'm like, holy cow, looks like a.
But it's that epoxy,
accident.
Laying that epoxy down just perfect.
And that takes time.
Definitely.
And it takes practice. But the cool thing is, every rod that I do, I get a little better.
Right.
The guy what I'm hoping is that the high school and college kids will see this as I'm doing this and go, you know what, if you want to build your own, one, you can save about half the money on any rod out there by building it yourself. And 2, how cool would it be not only to be able to catch a big bass, but catch it on something you built?
That's part of the lure there for me. No pun intended.
Yeah, I mean, there's big pike that I caught last year.
Yeah,
we're on a rod I built.
That's pretty sweet.
See, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, and the cool thing is, when you do that, here, and I'll tell you guys a funny story. This is true. So the first fish I catch on one of the rods I built, here's what I said to myself: oh God, please don't let the guys just strip off.
Oh yeah.
I just want the thing to stay together. Because you're like, I did something wrong. They couldn't be. It couldn't be like this. They're together, and now you get the point where you get the length and action that you want, and you're accurate. And are you more accurate because of the rod, or maybe because you're more accurate because of the confidence you have in the rod you built? I don't care. It feels cool.
Well, it's awesome to see you, giving feedback on some of those Facebook pages about rod building too, because it's cool to see a guy who is established in the industry, talking about it. So that's great.
Well, and we've always said that, our YouTube page doesn't do very much. And I've got a web page. I would rather have people go to my webpage and see our advertisers and see the other services we offer. The cool thing about Facebook is our Facebook views have pretty much went off the chart the last couple of weeks. And the cool thing is there's good responses there, and there's a lot of older people my age that are Facebook and that love to fish like that. And so you get some. You get some negative stuff when you put yourself out there. You always do, because there's always somebody out there who can do it better, right? Sure. But 99% of the stuff, I talk with a lot of the people that comment on the show, and if they ever want to message me, I feel if they took their time to message me, I can sure as hell take my time to message them back. And I want to talk with them, and if they like something or something helped them, I want to know, and if they say, well, I wish you wouldn't have done it that way, it doesn't mean I'm going to change everything, because it may just be an aspect or part of the show, but I appreciate their honesty. And I'm always going to be thankful for the people that want to comment or take time to watch the show, because it wasn't for any of them, I quite simply just wouldn't have a show.
Yeah. Well, you're absolutely telling the truth. I mean, you picked up the phone for us, so. Yeah.
Well, my screener wasn't here. No, I was thrilled to do it.
He's out checking the water quality.
Yeah, right.
Yep. So this is unfortunately or fortunately, we're moving along in the show here, and this is the part where we call the Fast Five.
Don't you do? I didn't even get to talk about Necco rigs yet.
Oh,
You're going to try to get to this point.
We'll have to have a part 2.
We're going to have a
Took
part
the
2.
words out of my mouth.
I'm running out of note
Bucky
space
is
here.
always giving backup shows to people.
I love backup shows. We could do a whole season worth of backup shows.
At this point, we could, yeah.
But I think that's a testimony to the guests we're getting.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
definitely.
Absolutely.
Well, this is technically his first
So-
backup show already. We had
yeah,
him on
he's
in.
already been on the show.
So we'll have a. What would
That
that
was
be?
just a 2-minute clip.
a
and
backup to the back.
And I
back
learned
to backup.
I learned way too much in this episode.
Now he's like
here
the
not to
Penguins.
do it again, guys.
Anyway, so we call this portion the Fast Five. It's where we hit you with 5 questions, and you just tell us what comes off the top of your head.
No wrong answers,
We'll tell you if they're wrong.
Yeah.
No wrong
Okay.
answers.
But
but no wrong answers.
yeah,
There has to be some wrong ones out there.
We'll eventually find one.
that's the whole purpose of this segment. Then we're just going to go through this and tell us an honest answer. That's all we.
Okay.
Number 1, what are you most proud of?
That's hard. I think I just recently got married.
Well, congratulations.
And thank you. And I'm not
fishing?
just saying this to say that.
Can you
what's
get
that?
married?
No. My I'm
real
really proud
person?
of real person. Yeah, Rhonda's her name, and I'm she's been a blessing in my life, and I think God gave me a second chance with her. And I'm not saying this to be corny. I'm really proud of what we're building for her daughter. And I'm really, really proud of that. So maybe corny or not, but that's just that's the first thing that hit.
That's
That's
Honest
the first thing that hit my heart.
Yeah, we're all family men, so that's wonderful.
Yep.
Perfect. All right, number 2. What's one thing you can't live without in the outdoors?
One thing I can't live without in the outdoors, man. That's a great question. First thing comes to mind, bug spray. Jesus criminy, they eat me alive.
Oh yeah, you're going to Canada.
Yeah, I was just gonna say you better
No.
get a tanker truck before you head to Ontario.
Boys, I'm not kidding you. It's loaded up, and it's like 2 or 3 different brands. I don't care what it is. I will. Yeah, I'll be greasy at the end of the day, but damn them. They're like the size of pterodactyls with a smile on their face up there.
Are you packing the full on DEET like inside of a coffee can in case they search you going into Canada because they don't like the DEET?
No, they don't. I've got some other stuff. I don't even remember the brand of it right now, but that is like DEET free. And we could get in a whole another discussion about stuff I learned about DEET. But this stuff is supposed to be the bomb. So if it's not, then I'm going to come back welted and cussing the guy at Shields. That's what I'm going to tell you.
Let us know, bud.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, Jim. Let's move on to question number 3. What makes you happy?
You know what?
Mike Pan.
Yeah. Oh, sure. I think I'm in a place in my life right now where it's going to sound corny, but waking up in the morning, I'm thrilled to be with the woman I'm with. I'm thrilled that I get to do this for a living. There's a lot of things that make me there's a lot of things that make me happy. There really is. I think I'm a 98% positive person. So one thing. There's just a lot of things that make me happy. I'm pretty fortunate. I'm pretty blessed. I surround myself with I think are good people.
That's perfect.
And they make me happy. It's not just about me. They make me happy.
That's good.
Nice.
Great.
So number 4, one thing you do every day to prepare for your outdoor lifestyle.
Yeah, pray.
Right.
Perfect.
And I do. And sometimes I'm negligent to do as much as I should, but I don't care what anybody tells me or says. What I believe is what's on every episode, that God made me a fisher and hunter. I'm proud of both, and I apologize to no one. That starts that show every day. And I owe him everything because I was an only kid that came from a low middle income family in Chicago, and I got to fish and travel and meet and see things that I never did. You're damn right, I'm extremely thankful. I pray.
Good on you, man.
Good.
Amen. And finally, last but not least, number 5, Jim, what is on your bucket list? You hunt and fish, so sky's the limit, bud.
It's wide open.
Okay, couple things. One, I want to sea duck hunt on the coast of Maine. I want to go after.
You said
Yeah, I
sea
wanna
ducks,
go
and we could get you not the coast of Maine. We know a guy.
You know, a couple.
Well, I want to go. I want to go after eiders. I want to just hunt eiders.
That's
I would
an
love
awesome
to do that.
thing.
I would love to be with guys who know how to do it and just have fun.
Like
and
layout
big
boat?
iron. Oh yeah. Well, see, I'm a layout boat hunter anyway.
Oh. Man, we are going to have another episode.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, because I hunt we filmed some great episodes out of UFOs.
Love it.
The owner of UFO Layout Boats is a friend of mine, Tony Homer. Me and my crew are big layout duck hunters. I think is the last frontier of waterfowl hunting.
Oh, it's so cool. You're so up and close on them.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love to hunt. I love to eat ducks and geese. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. If I could ever do eiders or something like that out of a layout boat, oh, good God, you would hear me screaming like a 12-year-old schoolgirl. I'd be so freaking excited. I can tell you that. And then probably if I've hooked a marlin before, but a bucket list is still to land one. To hook and land a marlin. Don't care if it's a stripey in a 200-pound range or blue.
Black, blue, doesn't matter what it is.
Nice.
That's awesome.
The bigger the fish, the bigger the fish, the more I want to pit myself against it. I mean, I've caught 210-foot long swordfish. I've caught 250-pound sturgeon. The bigger the fish that and if I lose, I lose. But I want to pit myself against it.
Awesome.
Cool.
Where can our listeners find you and stay up to date with you?
Easy stuff to do. If you just want to see what we're about, just want to see what we're about, go to hookandhunttv.com. And because I have a small production company, you can see about our video services and all that. You can also see the companies that we work with. That's at hookandhunttv.com. Nice and easy to do. If you just want to see the show on a consistent basis, simple thing to do, go to Hook and Hunt TV on Facebook and like the page. If you just like the page, every time we come out with a new segment, which is every 2 to 3 weeks for about 15 episodes a year, you will be notified about when the episode comes out. You can easily follow us on Instagram too. Our Instagram page is starting to grow at Hook and Hunt, but probably Facebook is probably our biggest following right now. Between my page at Jim Crowley, which we have some fun stuff there, but probably everything Hook and Hunt TV, if you want to know that. And I answer emails and messages from both, so you can easily just go to Hook and Hunt TV on Facebook and like us. And you'll be easily kept up to date. I think we just put a new video out tonight about getting ready to go to Canada. So we cover what we do in our truck and how we keep our truck and boat in running condition, everything. I think that's on Instagram,
awesome.
Facebook. So
perfect.
Yeah, we get pretty in depth on stuff about, we're going to show the inside of our boat on one segment because people like to see what's in your tackle boxes and things like that. And I would say we're pretty transparent as far as what we do and meeting people on the road. People have been really, really gracious and a lot of fun, a lot of laughs. And, I love the opportunity to get that. So, we always look forward to the next adventure.
Well, Jim, we really appreciate having you on.
Oh, yeah.
We'll definitely be in touch. If we don't get a hold of you before the Great American Outdoors Show, we'll definitely see you there. It's been an awesome episode.
Yeah, we can't wait to.
Well, I sure appreciate the opportunity, you guys, and trusting me and having this. And I hope your audience continues to grow. You guys are a lot of fun. You're extremely professional. I hope your audience continues to grow, and you guys are doing a great job. And I truly, sincerely appreciate the opportunity to be on your program. I really, truly do.
Okay.
Hey, thanks, Jim.
Thanks so much, bud. Take care. And guys, don't forget, this episode is brought to you in part by Smokin' the Grove Barbecue Festival.
Smokin' the Grove.
That's being held July 26th and 27th in Spring Grove, Pennsylvania. For more information, head over to smokingthegrove.com. Smokingthegrove.com. Love me them burn ends. And it's also brought to you in part by Moses Family Jerky.
Get out of town.
Oh, yeah. Get 15% off your next order by heading over to mfjerky.com. Make sure you use that promo code JerkyPursuits15. So, Deaky.
Yeah, bud.
Where can they find us?
You can find us by searching all the social media properties for Rut and River Pursuit Podcast. We are also on the World Wide Web. rutandriverpursuit.com.
There it is.
Make sure you check us out on YouTube, Rut and River Pursuits Podcast. Also, search all of us individually on Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah, you probably should do that. There's always something going on.
There is.
David Kyle.
That's one
of my
R2
favorites.
Buck. The miser, Stevie. He's
Steve Miser.
Steve Miser.
Yeah, don't get too fancy.
He's on vacation right now, so you better watch his stories.
Look up Pick Diesel.
And Pick Diesel?
Just spell it Pike Diesel and you'll find them.
Yes. Boys.
P-I-K.
P-I-K.
Good
Diesel.
stuff. Good stuff.
Guys, it's another great week.
As always.
Hey, yes, it has.
Thanks so much.
We'll see ya.
Peace.
Well, when conditions are changing, okay, so that's fine. So everything goes out the window. Great. So go out and fish.
Right.
Yeah.
So just go out and fish.
You carry a tackle box for a reason,
Yeah, and and a lot of them anymore are 20 feet long and $80,000. You've got a big
Exactly.
tackle box. There's
those are
and
tackle
the thing-
shops. We ought to figure that out because we lose some fish.
Speak for
Yeah,
yourself.
speak for yourself. I'm good.
Not a-
No, I was speaking for the rest of you guys, actually. Myself, I'm pretty good.
What? It's because all yours swallow the hook from your finesse rig.
Now, when you're
Jim,
fishing,
it sounds like you do a little bit of everything.
Right.
Hook and hunt.
I mean, he's hooking and hunting.
Yeah.
I guess.
It's not just a clever name.
Yeah, there's a reason behind that when we were drinking beer and made up the name for the show. But yeah.